Have you ever felt like you're living a life that, looks right on paper, but it just doesn't quite feel right? Well, today, we're going to explore a kind of map to the real you, the hidden architecture that's driving your choices, fueling your energy, and really shaping your entire life.
So let's just start with probably the most important question there is. Who are you really? And this isn't just some big philosophical question to ponder. No, it's actually super practical, because the answer or lack of one shapes every major decision you're ever going to make, from the career you choose to the people you love.
Here's the problem. Most of us are operating with borrowed identities. We're handed all these roles, we're an employee, a partner, a parent, but we're never really introduced to ourselves. So we end up building these lives that look good from the outside, but they feel just a little off, because the choices we're making aren't based on our own unique design. All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to dig into the self-knowledge problem. Then we'll introduce a totally new way to see yourself as a map. We'll break down the 5 core dimensions of that map, see how they combine to create a unique archetype, and then, the best part, we'll put your blueprint into action. Let's dive in.
Okay, first up, the self-knowledge problem. Why is it so ridiculously hard to get a clear picture of who we are? Well, it turns out that the feedback we've been relying on our entire lives is, frankly, pretty flawed.
See, we tend to get our sense of self from 3 really unreliable sources. First, other people's opinions. But let's be real, when someone calls you too sensitive, what they're really saying is how your behavior makes them feel. It's about them, not you. Second, our own behavior in specific situations. How you act when you're under a crazy deadline isn't your whole personality. It's just one piece of the puzzle. And third, the story we tell ourselves. That old tape playing in our heads that says, "Oh, I'm just not a creative person." We've just accepted it as fact without ever really testing it.
So, if all those old sources of feedback are broken, what's the alternative? We have to move beyond simple, restrictive labels. It's time for a map of you.
This is where the whole idea of a personality blueprint comes into play. Instead of trying to stuff you into a box, this framework gives you a detailed, dynamic map of your inner world. It's all built on 5 fundamental dimensions that describe how you're naturally wired to operate.
So how exactly is this map drawn? Well, it's not based on just one thing. It's actually built across 5 core spectrums that, together, define your unique inner architecture. Let's break them down one by one. The first dimension is all about your relationship with the future. Are you naturally optimistic? You're someone who leads with possibility, always saying, what could go right? Or are you more on the realistic side, grounding yourself in probability and what's most practical? And look, neither one is better than the other, but knowing your default setting here is absolutely crucial.
Second, how do you deal with risk? Bold people are all about action. They're comfortable moving forward even when things are uncertain. Cautious people, on the other hand, are precision-oriented. They want to gather more information before they take that next step. It's not about being reckless versus being scared. It's just a totally different relationship with the unknown.
Third, where do you do your best thinking? For collaborative people, it's all about dialogue. Conversation is where their ideas come to life. They literally think out loud. Independent people get their energy from solitude. They need that quiet space to process things internally. This is exactly why some of us get a huge buzz from a group brainstorm, while for others, it's completely draining. Fourth up is all about how you assign value to things. Romantic types are driven by meaning, by purpose. The question that's always in the back of their mind is, does this really matter? Practical types are guided by function, by results. Their big question is, okay, but does this work? It all comes down to whether you naturally prioritize purpose or pure functionality. And finally, our 5th dimension. What's your relationship with structure? Focused people thrive on depth and completion. They love digging in and finishing one thing. Explorative people, on the other hand, thrive on curiosity and variety. They get their energy from starting new things and connecting lots of different ideas.
So now let's see how these 5 dimensions build into something even more powerful. Because they don't just exist on their own. They weave together to create this unique, complete picture of who you are.
Your position on each of these 5 spectrums combines in a really specific way, and that combination creates a kind of 5-letter code that reveals one of 32 distinct personality archetypes. Each one has its own rich, detailed identity. Think of it as your own personal signature. So the process is actually pretty simple, but it's so powerful. Your unique scores across these 5 dimensions create a pattern, and that specific pattern points directly to your archetype. It gives you a clear mirror to see your inner world. Okay, but this isn't just some fun intellectual exercise, right? Understanding your blueprint is an incredibly practical tool. So let's look at how this map can totally transform your relationships, your work, and your life.
Just think about how this plays out in a relationship, especially during an argument. A collaborative person needs to talk it out right now, but an independent person, they need space to process first. Without understanding this, one person feels abandoned and the other feels totally pressured and suffocated. But with this map, "you're just shutting me out" becomes, "okay, I get it, we're wired differently. Let's find a way that works for both of us." And it's the same thing with your career. Are you an explorative person stuck in a deeply focused role? Well, that explains the burnout. It's not that you're failing, it's that the job doesn't fit your design. This map helps you find work that actually energizes you instead of draining you.
And this, right here, is really the main takeaway. The whole point of understanding your personality isn't to get a static label that puts you in a box. It's to get a dynamic, detailed map that helps you navigate your life with real intention.
So I'm going to leave you with this to think about. Once you have an accurate map of your inner world, you're no longer just wandering around hoping for the best. You can finally start making choices on purpose. So the only real question left is, where are you going to decide to go?